Hi, welcome. Coach Brennan Rarick here of Train Smarter and Harder Adult Fitness and Sports Performance in Brentwood, California, where it is 105 degrees today. We had our good friend Sylvina ask us a question on Instagram about one of our posts, our rear foot elevated split squat post, and she actually came by the other day and I told her that I would put her 5 videos up on Instagram for her, and so everybody benefits from this educational video that we're going to make here. So she had some low back stiffness and some right hip tightness, and more specifically in Bulgarian split squats, or what we call a rear foot elevated split squat. So I'm going to make 5 videos of 5 exercises that I gave her to help her with her right hip tightness and her Bulgarian split squats. So we have a table hip rotator stretch, a half kneeling hip flexion hold. Instead of doing sit-ups, we're going to do a lying hip flexion drill. Instead of doing Russian twists, we're going to do a standing anti-rotation drill. And I'm going to show you how to set up in the Bulgarian or rear foot elevated split squat so there's less chance of you having hip or knee pain in that position. So when Sylvina came over, we screened her using the functional movement screen, and more specifically, we wanted to look at her hurdle step and her overhead squat, which will give us a lot of information about her hips and why she might be feeling low back stiffness there when she does things like split squats and rear foot elevated split squats. And then we screened her hips and how they move. So in both flexion extension, external rotation, and internal rotation. Now she had great internal rotation, but she was missing external rotation on her right side, and it was not symmetrical or within reason of this opposite side hip. So one of the stretches I gave her was a hip rotator stretch. What you're going to do is you get up on a box or a table. And what I like about the box or table is it allows you to keep a better spinal position and a straighter leg on the bottom. Because the number one thing most people try to do is they try to stretch their hips with their back. Right? This is my favorite. So they just round through here and they're not getting a true stretch. I can get a great stretch if I prioritize my spine and look out, pretend this was a cliff, I wanted to look out over the cliff. That's as far as I need to go, keeping my spine in a good position to feel that hip rotator stretch. So what I gave her was 30 seconds on the left, 30 seconds on the right, 30 seconds on the left, 30 seconds on the right. So we're going to double up on the right hip, and now we're going to use our breath. So on the exhales when we drive the stretch. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and lean out and look over the cliff and get a stretch in that hip on that side. So as I mentioned in the last video, we screened for internal, external rotation of hip, and then we also did flexion, which is your ability to get your knee to your hip, and then extension. And we noticed that extension on her right hip was not equal to or within reason of the left side. So she was missing extension of this hip, and when she did go into extension, she got the extension from her low back. So the stretch that I got for her was actually one of my favorite core drills, but also one of my favorite hip flexor stretches. So you have options. You can use sticks, you can use a wall, you can use a bench. I will demo with the bench here. What you're going to do is you're going to press down into the bench or the sticks, which locks down your rib cage and pelvis. This knee, I'm 90 degrees, and I'm going to lean forward just a little bit so I feel this glute turn on, and I feel a big stretch through this hip, and then I'm going to press down and try to lift this foot off to the ground. So now I get hip flexor and quad stretch on the right side, and then core activation on the left. Notice I'm not using my lumbar spine. When most people stretch their hip flexors, they do this. Right? So they get a stretch through here in the pelvic ring, which we don't want, and they also use their low back to do the stretch. All right, so Sylvina also told us that she was doing a challenge this month. It's 30 days of, I can't remember what the 5 exercises were, but I know 2 of them were Russian twists and sit-ups. And sit-ups and Russian twists were giving her a little bit of a back problem or a little bit of a backache. So instead of sit-ups, which if you're here and you come up, it puts a lot of flexion on that spine, we're going to do a lying hip flexion drill. So it's going to actually look a lot like that last drill we did. We're going to do 3 10-second holds on each side. You're going to bring your knees to your chest. Notice it keeps my low back flat so that I don't use my lumbar spine here. I'm going to grab one knee
I'm gonna straighten that leg. So I get straight leg here, dorsiflexion toes up here. When I let go, I don't want this leg to move, and I'm gonna use these muscles to hold that leg in place. Notice it looks a lot like that hurdle step screen that we did. Looks a lot like running, walking, pushing sleds, walking upstairs. This is also that hip rotator stretch. So now we're taking our stretches and putting on stability and strength. When I switch, I'm gonna grab that knee, straighten that leg, and hold for 10 seconds.
All right, so the other exercise that was in her monthly challenge, and I'm not against monthly challenges, what I'm against is doing exercises that cause you pain or cause you discomfort. It should be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't cause you pain. There's a big difference between the two. So instead of Russian twist, and my problem with Russian twist is if you're here and you can keep that spine in a good position and then rotate, that's great. But what do most people do when they get tired? They go through their lumbar spine. So they rotate through here instead of rotating through here. So instead of doing Russian twists on the ground, I asked her to do what I would call an anti-rotation twist or a Russian twist standing. This is a little heavy. You're gonna get into an athletic position, and I'm gonna move arms only, small little movements. Notice these small little movements aren't coming from my spine like the Russian twists were. They're coming only from my arms, and my core is resisting getting thrown. It's the same muscles, but a lot safer for your back. Now, we have a pulley machine, which is pretty cool. If you don't have a pulley machine, it's simple as wrapping a band, which is what she's doing, and making small little movements here, which again is going to protect my spine and not make my spine the prime mover, but the prime stabilizer, which is what our core is supposed to do. Okay, a couple big things that I see that are a problem in the setup for the Bulgarians, or what might cause you problems, is, well, one is starting here and trying to guess how far away you'll be. Because when I guess, when I come down, notice how split out, notice how split I am. And if I was to load that up, that's gonna put a lot of stress on what they call the pelvic ring. So that's a place that you're supposed to stretch, but not necessarily load with heavy weights. The other thing is that the bench is almost always too high for everybody. What you really want is something that's about mid-shin for you. Notice that it goes up to almost like the top or the bottom of my kneecap. So we have this fancy machine here that allows us to adjust and put it at mid-knee height. What you could do is to take stress off that back leg is to elevate the front leg, which makes this effectively lower. So I'm going to use this over here. The big thing is that I want my body and shin angle to be the same. Your knee is allowed to go over your toe if you have ankle mobility. If you walk, your knee has to go over your toe, or else you'd walk like a South Park character or a penguin, right? And we're not penguins and we're not South Park characters. So my knee can go over my toe. My body and shin angle are the same. My butt is a fist length away from my heel, which takes pressure off this back leg. And we always start bottoms up. Bottoms up, just like the song. You start on the ground. So I don't start from far away, and I don't load this in a big stretch. Notice how scrunched up I am? Takes all the pressure off this back leg and puts it on this front leg, which is what we want. Effectively, you should almost not even have to pull with this back leg, almost like a skater squat. Once you get weights in your hands, then yeah, you're gonna have to pull with the back leg. But this, scrunch up, fist length away, body and shin angle the same, not really stretched out like this, is gonna take a lot of pressure off that pelvic ring and off the back leg and hip. So that's a better starting position for someone like Silvina that's getting that big stretch and it doesn't feel very good. It's just getting a little bit of back pain and hip pain in the back leg. So that's how you would want to set up instead of that wide position.